everyone, welcome to grammar lesson number 5. So today's topics are going to be covering pronoun reference and modifying errors. So the first topic is pronoun reference. So what do we mean by pronoun reference? So a clear reference requires that the reader will be able to easily find a one-word antecedent to which the pronoun refers to. So after Olivia washes the dishes, she puts them away. So in this sentence, the antecedent for she is Olivia and for them is the dishes. So she refers to, that's supposed to be Olivia, and them refers to dishes. So she puts them away, Olivia puts the dishes away. So with pronoun reference, what problems can arise? So first we have ambiguous reference, which is when there is more than one word to which the pronoun can refer to, and vague reference, which is when the antecedent is implied but it cannot be located. So I'm going to be going through examples and example sentences for both of these problems. So first, for ambiguous reference, here is a sentence. So when teachers have to fail students, they are not happy. So you might not know who they refers to in the sentence because it is ambiguous. So that's why the confusion arises. Who does they refer to? Does it refer to the teachers or does it refer to the students? Because the sentence can be read as when the teachers have to fail the students, the teachers were not happy, or the students are not happy. So this is just the original sentence for reference. So we know that we can fix this ambiguous reference with just saying the students, but that is repetitive because then this sentence would read, when teachers have to fail students, the students are not happy. So two better ways basically to solve this without being too repetitive is saying students are not happy when teachers have to fail them, because in this sentence we know that the students are the ones that aren't happy, yet we're not repeating students twice in the sentence, and in this sentence also works. So having to fail students does not make the teachers happy. So here, the they that was referred to here is different, but it's still a clear sentence. And again, there is no repetition of the teachers or the students. Next, we have the sentence, Luca told Chris that he was going to buy a rabbit. So this can be interpreted in two different ways. One being, did Luca tell Chris that he, as in Luca, was going to buy a rabbit? Or did Luca tell Chris that Chris was going to buy a rabbit? So it might be a little bit confusing, but I'm going to be going over it in the next slide. But just to make the confusion a little bit more distinct, in this sentence, it's saying, did Luca tell Chris that Luca was going to buy the rabbit? So Luca is telling Chris that he was buying the rabbit. And then in this sentence, it's saying, did Luca tell Chris that Chris was the one buying the rabbit? So here, again, the original sentence for reference, we can fix the sentences in many different ways. I just have 3 ways that I feel like are very clear and just popped in my head first. So Luca told Chris, quote, I am going to buy a rabbit. And then here we have Luca knew he was going to buy a rabbit and told Chris so. And then this last sentence is Luca knew Chris was going to buy a rabbit and so he told him. So in this first sentence, we have Luca told Chris. So then we know it's very clear that Luca is the one telling Chris that which is Luca, because this is Luca's speech, is going to buy a rabbit. So that makes it clear that Luca in this case is buying the rabbit. In the second sentence, we have Luca knew he was going to buy a rabbit and told Chris so. So Luca knew he was going to buy the rabbit. So Luca is buying the rabbit and he's telling Chris that Luca is buying the rabbit. And in this third sentence, we have Luca knew Chris was going to buy a rabbit, so he told him. So what's happening with Luca is that instead of him buying the rabbit, here Luca knows that Chris is going to buy the rabbit, so Luca told Chris, which doesn't exactly make sense when you really think about it, but in terms of the grammar of the sentence, it's very clear who the him is referring to and who is buying the rabbit. The next possible error we can have is vague reference. So there are several different kinds of vague reference. The most common takes a whole clause as an antecedent for the pronouns which, this, and that. So just to go through some examples to understand this. He said he had gone to see the flowers, which was a lie. Elizabeth suddenly shrieked, and that made everyone jump. In both of these sentences, the pronoun refers to the whole main clause, being he said that he had gone to see the flowers, and Elizabeth suddenly shrieked. So such a construction is acceptable in conversation, and when we're saying it to other people in real life, we understand what they mean, but in writing, it is not formal writing. So one solution is to put a word that would act as the antecedent, which is Elizabeth suddenly shrieked and that made everyone jump. So Elizabeth let out a sudden shriek and that made everyone jump. That's that sentence. That refers to shriek, but in a shorter way, we can just eliminate the pronoun and say Elizabeth's sudden shriek made everyone jump. It's very clear that instead of having that, we don't know if that is, well, that is referring to Elizabeth suddenly shrieked, but it makes more sense and it's more forward to have it as Elizabeth's sudden shriek made everyone jump. Or it made everyone jump when Elizabeth suddenly shrieked. So we know what the it is referring to in this sentence, but I personally prefer this first sentence. I think it's the shortest and most concise, but it gets the point across that Elizabeth's shriek made everyone jump instead of having some filler words that we don't exactly need and again cause a vague reference. In this second sentence that we were looking at, he said he had gone to see the flowers, which was a lie. So here, which is referring to this entire clause of he said he had gone to see the flowers. So his claim that he had gone to see the flowers was a lie, and he lied when he said that he had gone to see the flowers are two ways to fix this sentence to get rid of the vague reference. Because here, his claim that he had gone to see the flowers was a lie, so now we know that the lie is his claim. Or we can just directly say that he lied when he said he had gone to see the flowers. Again, both of these work. They just get rid of the vague reference, and as long as that happens, and these sentences are fine. Next, there are a number of ways to restructure a sentence. Any will do as long as it preserves the intended meaning and emphasis. Just remember that which, this, and that have specific single word antecedents. So let's go through some examples. So vague reference can stem from sentences with possession. So in this sentence, in Shakespeare's sonnets, he explores the many different sides of love. And in this sentence, the posters on Aidan's wall displays his love of hamsters. So when we have the word he here, we don't exactly know who that's referring to. And again, the poster on Aidan's wall displays his love of hamsters. So I'm just going to go through each of these sentences like I did with the previous two and kind of explain what's wrong and how to fix them. So in the sentence, you may want to say that Shakespeare acts as the antecedent to he, but the word in the sentence is Shakespeare's, a possessive and therefore an adjective, because the actual subject of the sentence is the sonnets, but we're just having Shakespeare apostrophe s as an possessive word to show that it's Shakespeare's sonnets, and it's just an adjective describing the sonnets. They could be any sonnets. In this case, it happened to be Shakespeare's, so Shakespeare's is not the antecedent to anything. And also Aidan's here, the posters on Aidan's wall, we could have just said the posters on the wall, on his wall, her wall. So Aidan is just helping describe what wall. So the antecedent for a pronoun has to be a noun or another pronoun. So let's look at this. These forms are clear and lets the reader know what is showing what. So in his sonnets, Shakespeare explores many different sides of love. So you may notice that the main difference here is that we don't have the apostrophe s making Shakespeare a possessive word. So then in his sonnets, whose sonnets? Shakespeare. So Shakespeare is the antecedent for his, explores many different sides of love. We also get rid of the possessive here by saying that by the posters on his walls, Aidan displays his love of hamsters. So Aidan is the one displaying the love of hamsters. We're not saying Aidan's posters are the ones displaying the love of hamsters. So these are just two sentences that shows the same way to clear up a vague reference by making sure that the possessive word is not the antecedent. It also cannot be the antecedent, so these are more straightforward and make more sense. So in both erroneous forms, the false antecedents, Shakespeare's and Aidan's, were in a prepositional phrase. So in other situations, the vague reference is more acceptable. Next, I'm going to be talking about confusion with it and they. So in today's Times like the newspaper of the New York Times, that's why it's underlined, it says that the club did extraordinarily well on their most recent fundraiser. In my textbook, they use too many complicated terms. So the problem is we ask ourselves these questions. What is it and who are they? There isn't a single clear answer, so we have to get rid of the pronoun to make the sentence make sense and get rid of the vague reference. So for the New York Times sentence, this is the original one in today's Times. It says But then we correct it to this. An article in today's Times says that the club did extraordinarily well in their most recent fundraiser. So the second half of the sentence is exactly the same. But what's changing here is that an article in today's Times. So an article is our subject. And that is what says that the club did extraordinarily well, blah, blah, blah. Except in here, it is again a vague reference with they. We don't know what it is or what it is referring to, so that's why it makes more sense to say an article in today's Times. And for the textbook sentence, this is the original sentence. In my textbook, they use too many complicated terms. Who is they? Textbook, a singular textbook is not referred to as a group, so it cannot be they anyways. So we correct it to, my textbook often uses too many complicated terms. So here you're directly just making it the first word and the direct, subject of the sentence, because you know that it's the textbook that is using too many complicated terms. So often the solution is to get rid of the pronoun and just have the art, like here, an article, my textbook, just have a subject directly there. So another thing for vague reference is to either make the reference clear and unambiguous by supplying a single one-word antecedent, or else get rid of the pronoun, Always reread your new sentence to make sure that it makes sense. So there are many ways to clear up ambiguous and vague references. It really just depends on the writer how they do so, but you just have to make sure that you're conveying the right idea and the idea you have in mind to your readers so that they're not confused when they're reading a sentence. Who is it, or what is they, or who is she? So it just basically providing a lot of clarity in your sentences. So the best way to understand vague reference and ambiguous reference and how to avoid that is to go through some practice sentences. So I usually have 3, but for this particular topic, I have 6. So we're just going to go through some multiple ways to fix sentences and what's wrong with them. So Max asked Billy to stop tying knots in his hair. Here his is ambiguous. We don't know whose hair it is. It could be Max's hair or it could be Billy's hair. So a way to fix this is A, Max told Billy, stop tying knots in my hair. So Max is the one that's talking, and Max said, stop tying knots in my hair. So we know that the hair belongs to Max, and Max is telling Billy to stop tying knots in Max's hair. Another way of fixing the sentence is saying, Max told Billy, stop tying knots in your hair. Max here is telling Billy the same thing with just one word difference, which is crucial. Here it's your instead of my. So Max is still the one speaking. So that means your has to refer to the person he's speaking to, which in this case is Billy. So Max is telling Billy, stop tying knots in your, being Billy's hair. In sentence 2, the incorrect sentence is, in John's bar, they don't tolerate smokers. We don't know who they is. They could be the workers in John's bar. It can't refer to John's bar as a whole. It can refer to John. It could refer to the bartenders. We don't know. So a way to fix that is smokers are not tolerated in John's restaurant. So now we know that it's just directly saying that smokers aren't tolerated in his restaurant. We're not saying they as ambiguously or vaguely referring to anything. So the third sentence is, Stella was walking her dog when she started to howl. Again, it probably makes sense in context or even out of context like it is now that the dog was howling. But again, this is ambiguous. We don't know who the she is referring to. It could be referring to Stella or the dog. So the correct sentence would be, Stella's dog began to howl while Stella was walking her. So this is a way that I used to fix these ambiguous and vague reference problems before. But if you want to make your sentence very clear, you can just put the subject that you're actually referring to in the antecedent in the beginning of the sentence. So Stella's dog began to howl while Stella was walking her. Stella's dog, or just dog, is the antecedent for her. We're putting it directly here, so we're kind of stating and starting with the sentence with knowing who the subject is. So I have 3 more practice sentences. So number 4 is, Ben is a dedicated bowler, but Rachel doesn't care for that sort of thing. What sort of thing? We don't know what that exactly refers to. So Ben is addicted to bowling, but Rachel doesn't care. Ben is addicted to bowling, but Rachel doesn't care for that sort of thing. So here, that sort of thing is Ben's dedication to bowling. But then Ben being a dedicated bowler, we don't know that Rachel doesn't care for him either being a dedicated bowler or just Ben by himself. So in sentence number 5, we have, in the movie, it says that he hears a voice saying, come here. So we can fix that by saying in the movie, we learn that he hears a voice saying, come here. Again, it here doesn't really refer to anything particular. So in the movie, comma, we learn that he hears a voice saying, come here. It's also just shortened sentence. It doesn't look like it because it's tabbed, but usually if we just shorten the sentences with these vague and ambiguous errors, we can kind of find an easy way to solve the problem. The last example sentence is Alexis's mother always calls her Lexi, which annoys her. So again, with context or even without context, you can infer, but as a writer, it's your job to convey your idea clearly. So we don't know who her is. Her could be Alexis's mother, or it could be Alexis. So it annoys Alexis that her mother always calls her Lexi. So it's annoying Alexis. And that makes it clear that Alexis is the her that was being referred to here, but now it makes sense that it annoys Alexis that her mother always calls her Lexi. So the next topic I'm going to be going over is modifying errors, and this is a little bit long, so bear with me on this topic. The wrong word. So Mr. James tells the story of how he married Eloise to his mother. So Mr. James, in fact, did not marry Eloise to his mother. To his mother is supposed to modify, sorry, you can't see that, but it's supposed to modify tells. So to fix this sentence, modifiers must be close to the word they modify. So in this example, you can make Mr. James's mother an indirect object. So Mr. James tells his mother the story of how he married Eloise. Here it's clear that Mr. James is telling his mom the story of how he married Eloise. So we're rearranging the sentence to find out what is modifying what, and it tells the clear story that the author was probably trying to say in the first place. So these words, even, only, almost, not, ever, never, again, often, nearly, hardly, and just, you must be careful with these above adverbs because we will look at this example sentence just to refer to it. So in this sentence, Abby only buys bagels on Sunday. So when we first read this, we can probably agree that it means that Sunday is the only day that Abby buys bagels. But if we move around the modifier only, we find so many different meanings that this modifier can give the sentence just by its location. So here in the sentence, only Abby buys bagels on Sunday. So no one but Abby is buying bagels on Sunday because we're saying only Abby buys bagels on Sunday. But if we move the only to after Abby, we have Abby only buys bagels on Sunday. So she does not eat them until a different day, or she doesn't eat them on Sunday. So again, we have only buys. So only is modifying buys here. So we know that Abby only buys bagels on Sunday. If we move only to in front of bagels, then we have Abby buys only bagels on Sunday. So she doesn't do anything but buy bagels on Sunday, but that's not important. The thing here is that if we have only before bagels, then it's saying Abby buys only bagels on Sunday. And then the last sentence is Abby buys bagels only on Sunday. Sorry, you can't see that, but it means that she only buys bagels on Sunday. She doesn't buy them Monday through Saturday. So next I'm going to be talking about an ambiguous modifier. So avoid placing a modifier where it might modify one of the two words. An ambiguous modifier is like an ambiguous pronoun reference. It is not clear which of the two words is being modified. So in these sentences, the woman biking recklessly swigged at her water bottle. What is recklessly modifying in the sentence? We can't really tell because it can modify biking or swigged. So if we move the word reckless, in this case, reckless or recklessly, we have a clear sentence and we know what it's modifying. So in this first sentence, this is one correct way of fixing this ambiguous modifier. The reckless biker swigged at her water bottle. So we know that the biker was the one that's being reckless and she just swigged at her water bottle. And then in the second sentence, the woman biking swigged recklessly at her bottle. Here we know that recklessly is modifying swigged and the biking is just, there's no modifier here. Next, we have a dangling modifier. So we have to avoid placing a modifier where it quote unquote dangles without a clear single word to modify. So in this sentence, that's supposed to be a number, but when only, let's say, 7 years old, Jesse's temper was already uncontrollable. So what does the phrase modify? So it doesn't modify temper, it's supposed to modify Jesse. But she's not in the sentence as a noun. Because like I explained before, I don't remember the exact words, but here we could just have the temper, but here, since we know that it's Jesse's temper, Jesse is an adjective for the word temper, so we have to make Jesse a noun to make this dangling modifier a regular modifier. So here we have the sentence, when only 8 years old, Jessie couldn't control her temper, or when she was only 8 years old, Jessie couldn't control her temper. And this is just another way of doing it, but when Jessie was only 8 years old, her temper was uncontrollable. So here in all these 3 sentences, Jessie is not possessive, so it's not saying it's Jessie's temper, it's just Jessie as a subject and a noun, and that's why we can use it to be modified, because it's not possessing anything. So next, many dangling modifiers are created by passive constructions, especially after an introductory infinitive phrase. So in the sentence, to outshout Felix, strong lungs are needed. Who or what is to outshout Felix? So we are not clearly told in the sentence. So to fix this, well, this is just a sentence that was there before. So although the sentence sounds better, the problem isn't solved by saying strong lungs are needed to outshout Felix. Although infinitive phrases normally can serve as both adjectives and adverbs, when they introduce the sentence, they are always adjectives and need a noun or pronoun to modify. So, to outshout Felix, you need strong lungs. So here, we're directly appointing a subject, or a who in this case, that needs to outshout Felix. You need strong lungs, so it would be you. So next we have imperative sentences, which are basically commands, contain a understood you, since commands always go directly addressed to a person or persons. So some example of imperative sentences are, this is on the left side of the arrow, which is go take a shower. There is an implied you before the go, so it would be saying you go take a shower. So imperatives can just be thought of as commands. So you're just commanding someone, go take a shower. It's just a shorter way because there's already an implied subject as to who you are commanding to go take that shower. So the following sentence is also correct: to make chocolate cake, buy flour and chocolate. So to make chocolate and cake, you buy flour and chocolate. The you is implied, but again, because it's an imperative sentence, we can just kind of leave it out of the sentence. It also helps shorten it, and it's not as repetitive when you're writing with these in your papers. So just some example sentences to go over. So the first sentence is, Anna only knows 1 doctor, but her friend knows 9. So this sentence is saying Anna only knows, the only thing basically that she knows is 1 doctor. But we can fix it by saying Anna knows only 1 doctor, but her friend knows 9. So the reason we know that this is not a dangling modifier, but we don't know what it's modifying, is because the second half of the sentence is her friend knows 9. So that's implying that while blank here, her friend knows 9. So that we know that the first part of the sentence has to say something about Anna only knowing a limited amount of doctors. So that's why we have to put the only after knows to say that Anna knows only 1, but her friend knows 9. So the second sentence is, singing in the streets, Billy's voice drove people away. So that's kind of also a little bit messy in the sentence. So if we fix it by saying Billy singing in the streets drove people away, it's a more direct, again, shortened version of how to directly say what your thoughts are. So what is driving people away? It's Billy singing. It also makes more sense just to start again with your subject. So people, when they start reading the sentence, they know exactly what you're talking about in the beginning of the sentence. And then the last example sentence is, Olivia drove to the restaurant where she was going to eat in Zoe's car. Punctuation also matters here, but the order is kind of wacky, so we don't really understand what's going on. So we can fix the sentence by starting with, in Zoe's car, Olivia drove to the restaurant where she was going to eat. Here it makes it clear that Olivia is driving in Zoe's car to go to this restaurant. Rather, in this incorrect sentence, it's saying that we know that Olivia drove to the restaurant, but it implies that she was going to eat in Zoe's car. So just by rearranging the sentence, you can also clear up any vagueness or ambiguity in your meaning. So that is everything for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or concerns, please do leave them in the comments or anywhere. Thank you.